So welcome, bienvenidos. Thanks for coming out. I hope you've been enjoying your day, California Wildlife Day. We're having such a great time sharing the love of the animals, love of each other. This is like a big community time and celebration. And I have my poetry sister in the house, Aideed Medina. She is just like magical, just like the words tumble out of her mouth. And she just inspires me every time I hear her. So, any chance you get to hear Aideed Medina live or in this Zoom space, you don't want to miss it. She is working with some young Latinx folks in Fresno and doing Reforma del Valle, and involved with so many creative projects. We've had the opportunity to work together and co-create, and we did a poem together where I had some words, and then she just spontaneously replied in the moment. So we're used to freestyling, and we're used to just letting the words tumble and just seeing what comes in the moment. But Aideed has created a beautiful workshop for you. So I would like to turn the mic over to Aideed and have her shine her light. So thank you for coming, and Aideed, you are welcome to take the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And can you make me co-host? Because I'm going to be sharing my screen in a moment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you very much. So, like Marie said, I'm a poet. I am from Salinas, California, so I love the Central Coast and I'm very familiar with the area, the land, and the bodies of water and the animals and the plants out there. I spend a lot of time going there because, like all things, we always come back home at some point. It's always cyclical. And so I'm really happy to be a part of California Wildlife Day. And in this uh, Zoom world, we're glad that we can also include students and teachers and people, loved ones and poets from all over the place, and not just the Central Coast. So this has made it special. Such a hardship has turned into something beautiful, and I'm glad to be sharing it with all of you. So gracias y bienvenidos a todos. Voy a estar haciendo la clase en inglés y en español a como me mueva el corazón, o sea, la corazonada me lleva de un lenguaje al otro y ahí me aguantan ambos partidos, okay? So, we'll talk a little bit about what Flor y Canto is. You know, a lot of people, um, they 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 know that I'm a poet, but they don't know about my process or what it is. You know, dicen, ¿qué es? Pues, ¿qué es Flor y Canto? ¿Qué es eso? ¿Con qué se come? Like, how do you do that? And Flor y Canto it is not a new approach to poetry at all. It is a very ancient practice. It's an indigenous practice of interpreting the universe and its messages to us through poetry and song and lyrical forms of all kinds. And so that's what I practice, Floricanto. And it feels it feels, I think, much more fulfilling to me as a person and as a poet to employ that practice when I'm writing poetry. And I would sometimes I tell my students, especially the younger ones, you know, a lot of times when we write poems, we sit down and we think hard. We try to force the words out of our mind. And then we try to physically move the words around until they fit a certain format and they paint a precise picture. And Floricanto is not at all like that. Floricanto allows, like Marie says, she says that my words just flow out of me. Well, in Floricanto, I am understanding that it is not me. I am not willing the words out of myself. It is everything in my surrounding that is speaking to me, and I am just basically translating it into what humans recognize as language. And so it is much more, it feels more like a river and less like hitting a wall. So when you can't come up with things in Floricanto, I don't know if you could call it writer's block, porque no hay nada bloqueando. O sea, Floricanto en nuestra práctica tradicional, que es algo muy nuestro, con nuestros lenguajes indígenas, con el lenguaje en español también, es algo tan natural a nuestra gente y a nuestras culturas mesoamericanas que pues eso siquiera, aquí nada nos enseñó Shakespeare. Esto no tiene nada que ver con la poesía de los grandes autores anglos o americanos, norteamericanos que nos enseñan en la escuela. Tiene que ver con el corazón, con lo que fluye en la sangre, lo que fluye en el universo. Y por eso es mucho más una práctica poética natural que lo que es asentarse y hacer una tarea. So poetry is never homework, people, okay? Poetry is never a task. Poetry isn't something you check off, not in Floricanto. In Floricanto, it is an expression of the world around us. And in this regard, for my Floricanto, well, I have a special relationship with nature because that is where I find my motivation and my messages. When you enter nature, any spot, if you're on a hike or you're going to a park or you are at the beach, ocean side, and you're listening to the water and to the shorebirds, when you are there, you are not there just when you are there for purposes of Floricanto, for purposes of communicating with the natural world, you're there to listen. As we had our very wonderful speaker welcome us this morning, I've never heard it put so beautiful. I've read it. I read it in other terms in Braiding Sweetgrass, which is a wonderful book, and I recommend it. Not only for biologists and botanists, but also for poets. But this morning, Mr. I please, Mary, can you help me with his name? Bye.
Yes, Rafael Payan.
Rafael Payan. He he wrote it so perfect. He spoke it so perfect. He said his mother told him to listen to the land. The land would tell us how to live and how to live well or to survive it or to live better. And that is precisely what Floricanto es. Así que cuando estamos practicando Floricanto, cuando entramos a los lugares naturales donde podemos ir a visitar, ya sea a la playa o al parque con nuestra familia o a la montaña, hacer una caminata, o cuando salimos al jardín, right, stepping out into your yard, into the balcony, just to observe the sky, the weather, any of those things outside your window, those things are what are going to tell us how to survive the day, the moment. There are times, especially right now, where we are so overwhelmed by everything that we are trying to accomplish, that whatever everything that we are trying to accomplish in this in our uh, quarantined, contained, separated world, that we are need something outside, much bigger than us, something much grander than us, and nothing is more grand than the natural world, the earth, and the environment that we live in. And so even a cloud has something to tell you on how you should deal with the day, deal with the moment that maybe is difficult or maybe is joyful and you need a way to express it. And so that's what Floricanto is all about. Floricanto is just basically listening and taking in those messages from nature and the world around us, and then we translate it and we're able to share it on. So there are, there are stages to Floricanto, right? There, like I said, it's a meditative practice in its most basic way to explain it. There's always the observational aspect. Así que cuando salgan a la naturaleza, cuando salgan afuera, lo primero que tenemos que hacer es notar. ¿Qué escuchamos? ¿Qué miramos? ¿Qué tocamos? ¿A qué sabe el viento? The ocean air has a particular taste. And so there's a particular smell to soil when it is wet from rain. There is a way that the air smells in certain areas when the pollen is strong in the wind. All of these things are things that we can observe. And so the quieter we become and the more open we become, then we'll be more able to perceive the details of everything and recall them. Because sometimes the poem doesn't come right there in the moment until you've had a lot of practice. So you want to be able more than anything else to remember the feeling. So that is the second part of it. We have the observation, then we have the meditation. What did that moment feel like? What did watching the snail go across the sidewalk? What did that make you feel? Did it make you remember something? So these are things that we notate. What did the blossoms falling out across in front of your window? What did they make you recall? Did you remember something? So these are those associations. So now that we talked about observation and meditational aspects, I want to take you outside because we have to experience. I don't think I can teach you well a Floricanto thought or process unless we experience some nature. So I'm going to borrow some nature. You can do that in the virtual world now. We're going to borrow some nature from the Arboretum. And I shared this page, and I'm glad that the session is being recorded because I hope that other people who are not able to be here because of all the wonderful stuff that is going on, they have a chance to come back and use all those beautiful classes that they were able to take and put some floricanto, put some poetry into the situation. So I'm going to go ahead and share the my page here from the Arboretum. Now, I happen to be a board member for the UC Santa Cruz Arboretum.
We're not seeing your.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna try to bring it up first of all. Just a moment. I haven't shared it, and I'm glad I haven't because apparently they're having a moment. I've been listening to this thing all day long, and now it's telling me they're having problems putting. But not to worry, because I got this. All right, here we go, and I'll be able to share it now. Okay, I'm coming back to go ahead and get in and share the screen. That's one of the things that we learned today. We have to be so patient with each other. Here, let me share the screen. Thank you. Go ahead and share. I hope you can see it. Can you hear it?
You can share sound. Share computer sound.
Yes. Do you see it?
We can see it.
Okay. So we're going to take a moment. So now here we are. We are in nature. We're in one of my favorite places in the whole world, right in your backyard, the UC Santa Cruz Arboretum. And we're listening to sounds around the seasonal pool in the morning. There's Mr. Coyote. And I want you to think of yourselves being there. These are my favorite guys. I love those guys too. Así que todo esto se puede ver en los jardines del jardín botánico que tiene la Universidad de Santa Cruz en UC Santa Cruz. Y es un lugar tan hermoso, de bajo costo, donde uno puede ir a escuchar, sentir, estar presente con la naturaleza. Y por eso me gusta mucho ir ahí. Es un lugar excelente para llevar a la familia. Ahí se puede uno sentar, llevarse unas tortas, llevarse una merienda pequeña y tomarse todo el tiempo del mundo de observar la naturaleza. And I'm going to stop it right there. So thank you. All right. Marie, did it stop sharing?
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you, Aideed.
Thank you. And you can always find that. I highly recommend it just for medicinal purposes right now, actually. You can find that on the UC Santa Cruz Arboretum website. Um, that gave us an experience that we shared because I can walk you through a workshop and ask you to think back on an actual nature experience. But in this way, we shared it. And that's also an important aspect of Flor y Canto. So that we observed, ¿verdad? So we observed hearing those sounds, seeing the sights, los colores. Think about the colors that you saw. ¿Qué te hicieron, qué les hizo sentir los colores? What did the colors make you feel? What did you notice just from the colors? How about the presence of water? The presence of water is very powerful, even just to the sight. Así que cuando miramos, no nomás cuando estamos presentes en el agua, en la lluvia, junto a un río, junto al mar, pero mirando el agua, mirando fotografías simplemente de gotas de agua en las flores. Todo eso es, sí, los pajaritos. So many kinds of birds. And the quails are some of my favorite birds at the Arboretum. They're very loud, but very shy. They hide. But I was just noticing your beautiful quail there on your background. But I love the quails at the Arboretum. So not only the flowers have color, the birds have color. So you saw the scrub jays with their blue. That's an amazing book. Hay unos colores que nunca los vamos a ver en otro lugar más que en la naturaleza, que son difíciles de recrear. And I'll tell you why it is almost impossible sometimes to recreate these amazing colors that we find in nature. It is because when we experience them in nature, there's an emotional attachment to it because we are feeling something. We see the bird, and it could be fear. It could be fear. It could be sadness. It doesn't always have a joyful translation, the experience. But we write about that. How did that experience make you feel? Because that is the message that we're trying to decipher. What is this moment trying to tell us? And so I hope you noticed something, at least one thing, con que hayan notado una sola cosa. Notice one thing at least, then you already have the beginnings of a poem. Ya con una sola cosa que hayan notado. Ya de ahí todo lo demás viene fácil. A lo mejor piensan que no, pero sí. Y no todos los poemas tienen algo intelectual, aunque lo natural y los sentimientos nos llevan a lo intelectual. So not everything starts off with an intellectual purpose. Sometimes it is just a feeling. And in Flor y Canto, it is most important because what happens when we go into nature thinking we know better? We know more than the earth. We know more than the quail. We know more than a piece of sage, more than a handful of soil. We know more. But this is not true. The fact is that these things have been surviving way longer than us. Okay? So even mushrooms are more ancient and more and wiser in their ways of how to survive. If we want to talk about being resilient, we need to look at those organisms that we don't normally consider as teachers. ¿Cómo? How is it possible that a mushroom is going to teach me anything? Well, it is. And in Flor y Canto is where we decipher those things. So as we notice things around us in our surroundings, we notice how they survive, how they make their living. That means how they feed themselves, how they rear their young, how they react to violence. I just watched a session where a skunk fended off a mountain, itself from it protected itself from a mountain lion, and I like to say it took the defensive. It chased the mountain lion. I've never knew that skunks were so courageous until I saw this little skunk not only chase off the mountain lion, but once it was in the clear, still decided to go after it some more because it could, because it was a skunk. Now that's resilience. That's some resilience right there. Some of us need to learn to be like skunks. Not only do we want to protect ourselves, but maybe we want to be the scarier thing in moments. And there is a lesson that we could write about if we were lucky and brave enough to observe an altercation between a mountain lion and a skunk, or a bear and a skunk. There was that one also made me cautious.
Claro que sí.
Así que cuando tenemos estas experiencias en la naturaleza, pues nos está enseñando lecciones, nos está dando un mensaje, ¿verdad? Y nuestros sentimientos lo van a traducir todo. It is our emotions that translate all of those experiences. So now that we have the meditative aspect down, comes the part that everybody thinks is homework. And what did I say? Poetry is not homework. Flor y Canto is never homework. Never. If anybody here thinks, I gotta go work, I gotta go put some work in, when it comes to Floricanto, then you missed the boat entirely on what I am saying. Okay. Yes, writing is a craft, writing is a skill, and practice makes it better. And reading makes us better writers, by the way. So all of these things are true. I'm not discounting anything that you've learned from your teachers or in institutions or in schools of thought. But I am telling you that Floricanto has an aspect that is much more than writing. But of course, writing is part of it. You want to be able to share it. And not all of us can share from emotion or memory. Like Marie says, it's taken me a lot of years to practice that. I don't believe I could do that. When I started writing poetry, I was a baby. I must have been like in first grade. There was no way that I could remember a poem in my heart and then share it. So for years, I've written it. So that is that next piece in the Floricanto. So first we had observation, then we had meditation, and now we're at writing. So these are kinds of questions. This is the one important question you could write down for yourself. What was the most significant feeling, thought, sight, or any observation that you made? Right there. ¿Qué fue lo significante? Just that alone can help you to prompt the rest of the poem once you are ready to write the poem. The significant feeling, significant emotional response was brought on by what? What was it? Was it a color? Was it a thought? Was it a cloud? Was it a leaf? Was it a dead branch? Was it something that was already putrefying in the ground? What was it, a flower? Was it something you heard? And there's the beginning of your writing. And there's the beginning of your poem. So we have those steps, right? And if you begin from there, like I said, just capture that feeling. If you want to, if there's only one thing that you write down in the experience, is to write down the feeling of the moment in your mind and put it down on paper. Put it on your cell phone. Whatever kind of thing you're going to record it on, you want to make sure that you have that caught, that you have that captured in order to use it. This is the crafting part of Floricanto. Because unfortunately, we live in a society that writes everything down. We value the written word. It means nothing sometimes. Our oral tradition, I want to say, because to me, oral tradition is very important, but we have to be truthful. And this society does not give the value that it should give to oral tradition. So write it down. So that is why we have a writing component in these workshops. Así que a partir de meditar, mirar, meditar, sentir la emoción, tenemos que escribir algo. Y lo más importante que se tiene que escribir es qué nos hizo sentir, qué captivamos, qué fue la cosa más fuerte que presenciamos en el momento. Because we are capturing moments. That's another thing about Floricanto. Floricanto is expressing the moment. Because the moment is important. We are a society that likes to think to the future all the time, or sometimes dwells very heavily in the past. But we want to really capture the moment. And then we can relate it to future things and relate it to the past. But you need to understand what you're living. And that is also an aspect of writing in Floricanto, how it relates. But all of these things are important to be able to express authentically when we write about our experience. So it can't just be a list of observations. It should be of how you relate it to them in the moment. So it can be an authentic expression of your, basically, I don't want to say soul, I'm going to dare. of your spirit, of your soul in that place. Now, uh, in modern societies, we don't usually think of nature as places of worship or divinity or enlightenment, but they are. They are original temples. That's why in Mesoamerica, places like mountains and bodies of water were sacred in the spiritual traditions. So when we are writing these things, we need to be conscious that if, in the practice of Flor y Canto, these things are sacred. They are ceremony. They're not meant to adorn us or to serve us as ways to embellish ourselves. There are ways for us to express gratitude, to express humbleness to the surrounding and to the people that we are sharing with. So that brings me right now. I wanted us to write. I have till 1:30, correct, Marie? Yes. Okay. Just double checking on our time. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to let you write. Let me give you 5 minutes. And let me tell you, it sounds like a little bit, but 5 minutes is an eternity sometimes for free writing when you're not used to doing it all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to go ahead and write for 5 minutes. And you know what, Marie? I think I'll put the video back on so we can hear some more of it. Is that okay?
Yeah, AD, make sure when you do your share to click on the share computer sound so we can hear the sound.
Jennifer told me, and of course I forgot because sometimes soy media burra. All right. Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Jennifer. Let me do that again. Okay. Let me get this up here. Thank you. And then we'll start the writing, okay? And I'll let you know right now. Let me bring up the video. And you can start writing from your notes, everyone. So we will stop. I will give you until let's do 7 minutes. Make it nice and even. 1:10. So you have till 1:10 to write from your notes and things that we've been talking about. Okay, and I'm gonna put the video up if that'll help. And if you're writing from a place of memory, please go ahead and write. And then I'll tell you a little note that you can put on there like when you do nature journaling. So you have till 1:10 to write, please.
Hey, Linda, that was so beautiful to see it and
Okay.
hear it with the sound this time. It was beautiful
Oh, you
writing.
couldn't hear it last time? Oh, I
Oh,
feel so bad.
it's okay. It's okay. I think it was good. Then people focused on the visual and now they got both. So it's perfect.
All right. Well, I hope that you were able to wrap up some of your writing. Now, this next part of the workshop, I want to talk about sharing. Just a moment. Apparently, I'm still playing stuff. There we go. Okay. The sharing. Okay, let me talk to you a little bit about sharing because also that is very special when it comes to Floricanto. So sharing with Floricanto, does not always have to be with an audience, not even a small circle of people, which is I always like doing that. Small circles are wonderful. Uh, you can share Floricanto is meant, like I said, in that tradition of Mesoamerican creating art and beautiful things. They were meant as offerings as gifts. They were really never meant to beautify us. So a lot of the great pieces of art that you see, like in the museums, the National Museums of Mexico City or the Mayan pieces, they were never meant for human consumption. They were created, and the longer that you worked on these pieces of art and then offered them into the earth and covered them up. Like, can we imagine in the way that we perceive art and how we value aesthetics and beautiful things, as we should, as we should. But the Mesoamerican tradition, those things were created as offerings. And so sometimes Floricanto was shared just with nature itself, no one present. Now, there were pieces that were, of course, created for political and religious reasons. And can you imagine anything more moving than a poem to raise an army or to bring respect to a ruler? Of course. But in the tradition where we offer something, then it is okay to be humble and just offer the words out loud. So for those of us who are shy, que no nos gusta compartir las cosas en público, que no le quiere enseñar el cuaderno a nadie, a la maestra, we don't even want to show it to the teacher. In Floricanto, we would accept that and say that it's fine. No matter how fine a poem, if it is not something you want to share with anyone, you can share it just to nature. You can share it just to solitude, to the universe, alone in your room or out in the actual land and outside. I have often shared my work with groves of trees, with particular patches of grass. These are things I fall in love with flowers. This is stuff that happens to me. So it's quite acceptable to know that these works, this your art is valid. You are a poet because you thought it, because you created it, because you shared something with the world, with the earth as you created it. You are a poet. Please don't ever wait anyone permission or branding to call yourself a poet if this is coming from you and being born of you naturally and it is something that feels right, then you are a poet. Okay, if you had to write a poem in class because your teacher made you, pues, hey, you're a good student. You're awesome and you follow directions. But if you go home and you can't get the words out of your head, just they won't leave you alone, you have to write them or you have to say them, then you are a poet. And it does not matter if it isn't published, if it isn't shared in schools, if no one ever says, hey, you, Marie Butcher, you're a poet. Josie Bustos, you're a poet. No, ladies that I know to be poets. But it is simply as in nature, it is the simple fact that you exist and that you're being poetic in your expression, that you are a poet. So it doesn't have to be an audience or a circle. It could be sharing out loud within the actual space that you wrote it for, or in another space. Offer it, share it as an offering, an acknowledgement, or in gratitude. Okay? So these things that we write, they make us poets because we write them, we create them. And they can be anything. Now, some of my younger students here, the younger students, doesn't even have to be words. Sometimes your poems are a combination of words and drawings, maybe of words and songs. If you happen to know how to play an instrument, maybe you are taking band or you know how to play the piano, then your poems could maybe be expressed that way. And that is the wonderful thing about poetry. It is your expression of how you are relating to the world. So, with that said, no pressure, but I would love to hear someone read their piece if they are willing to share. No pressure, Marie.
We're going to invite it open to the audience first and see if
Yes, of
anybody wants to
course.
share.
Anybody want to share? Just let us know. Maybe you'd like to share in the chat what you wrote. If you don't want to share, and like I said, you don't have to. It's not a requirement. And sometimes we're shy, especially when we're first starting out. How many poets don't keep secret notebooks? All of my notebooks are secret, by the way.
The secrets you write in the clouds anyway for all to see.
The secrets that I write on Facebook. All of those things. Okay.
No volunteers.
No volunteers.
Oh, Sarah.
Okay. Please go ahead, Sarah. However you want to do it.
Okay, I'm here. I'm here. Let's see. Okay,
Hi, Sarah.
Oh,
you're muted,
I'm
Sarah.
There we go.
I remember an event that Marie organized in 2017 at the MPC horticulture department out there in the beautiful greenhouse they have, and with the little colorful thingies that we could hang all over campus. They were like,
so beautiful.
I really enjoyed that occasion. And yeah, nature is very inspiring. All the wildlife is so inspiring. And this is what I wrote in my 10 minutes. I don't know if you can see it or if I should.
If you can recite it for us, that would be beautiful, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. And right now I was taking notes in Spanish of what Aideed Medina was saying. So, well, maybe you cannot see them, but here they are too. So it's the wildlife around me is a sample of great love. Each of the creatures that are placed in my environment are there for a reason. The insects, the lizards, the bees, and the ants all have a great story to tell. The mice and the gophers, the rabbits and cats, all have a mission to be. The squirrels and blue jays, the owls and the birds, they all tell me of the glory of God. That's it. That's it.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, and I really get inspiration because I live close to a field. I don't know if you can see it here right now. In this field, I see all kinds of coyotes and owls on that big pine tree. And there's bobcats, and the other day we saw a wild turkey. We see deer and falcons and owls and everything. You know, it's I'm so happy to be here in the valley. So very close to where you are probably, right? So I was taking notes in Spanish and I want to read this one now.
Sí, 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 por favor.
Yeah, it says, tu arte y poesía vale mucho, pues viene de ti, se siente en el alma y se ve en tu perfil. Okay, this is a translation of what you were saying, okay? So everybody knows what it is because they just heard you, I did. So it says, si no se comparte, ni nadie la ve, es simple expresión de tu ser para ti y para tu creador. Ofrece tu verbo en gratitud al creador, pues admiras lo que hay allá afuera en el field. That's it.
Oh, maravilloso, Sara. Y qué bendecida estás. Mira qué bonito lugar.
Yeah, I know.
That is beautiful. That is very, oh my God. If that was my window, olvídate, I wouldn't do anything but stare out the window.
Yeah.
That's the
La
only thing
ventana
I
de la naturaleza. Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing up the memory of the poet trees, where we did hangings and poems on fabric and hung them in the gardens at our local community college.
Yeah.
Yes, Marie, I hope that I can join you guys in future events of this kind because they're very enriching to the soul.
Of
Oh,
course. Thank you for sharing,
gracias.
Sarah.
And thank you, Sara. Qué bonito. And I'm so glad. Estoy tan contenta que compartiste en inglés y en español. See, that's what, that made my day right there. Thank you. And I remember you hung up one of my poems about Mireya.
It's still in my garden, honey.
Oh, thank you. That was a beautiful project. Sara, gracias.
De nada.
Oh my God. Wonderful. Well, anybody else want to share?
All right, they're forcing my hand. If no, there aren't any other hands raised.
Okay, Marie. Yay!
I was slightly distracted since I'm also organizing this event. So but here we go. What can we learn from the wisest mushroom? From the flutter of the magenta colibri? What can we make sacred? How can we make sacred the croak of the toad, the hunting gaze of coyotes, the blossoming of first buds of spring? Every heartbeat of colibri replicates the pulsing of all our energy. Do we not hear and see all that was here before us? Now, every dewdrop caresses the new leaf, the rosebud that feeds the bee that will spin honey for us and be a sacred offering. Gracias a ti.
Yes, 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 yes. You know, I love when those colibris are up in there.
Oh yeah, lots of colibris.
Well, let me, anyone, oh, that was beautiful. I loved it. I loved it. That was gorgeous. Anna Marie, you always know how to get me. You always know how to get me, mamacita. Anybody else would like to share? I am going to share some of my work before we finish, but I really would love to hear anybody else has something they'd like to share. And remember, poems can be 1 or 2 lines, okay? A mí que no me vengan, there has to be like a full page, or it could be anything. Where I think I heard someone say yesterday in a reading that I was reading at, sometimes it's 1 word, but it's the way that we say it. And that's also an important part when we share. So anyone else?
Can I try?
Yes, please, Estelle, yes.
Okay. Slithery, slathery, my garter snake. Surely your body must be a mistake. Your eyes, your mouth, and your tongue stay wisely balanced on your head. You gobble your food, you swallow it whole, if it's a mouse, a rat, a leech, or a mole. Slithery, slathery, my garter snake. Why can't you eat ice cream or chocolatey cake?
Big snaps and claps. That was awesome,
Yay!
Ishel. Thank you. Also, Ishel did an amazing video about the garter snake and her garter snake poem. Thank you. That was awesome.
That was great. That was really good. I loved it. Oh man, I'm gonna have such a great day after this. That was wonderful. That was beautiful. Oh my gosh. Anybody else? Anybody else want to share? We have a kitty cat. I like that. Okay, then well, I'm gonna share a piece. Okay. And I was frantically trying to find a piece that I wrote recently on Moss Landing, but I think I'll share it as well, and I'll do it in the tradición of the moment. So we'll do both. Okay. But I'm gonna share two pieces with you. Let me go ahead and share the first one. So this is called Big Enough. The earth is big enough to find a spot to touch and give my tenderness over. Bunch grasses and valley oaks embrace my presence. I embrace the wild things growing in the valley and in the foothills. Everyone will know that I love the silhouette of wide trunks and outstretched branches. Everyone will know because the trees speak to each other. The earth is big enough. To find a patch of ground to touch, the soil will tell you that you are embraced. Everyone will know that I love the silhouette of your life, wilderness of my heart, de mi corazón, todo lo silvestre que eres, como rama infinita, como pasto que no deja de crecer. Every season, throughout oak years, you will know. Thank you. So that's Earth is big enough, and this piece is called Moss Landing. Now, en el lodo de tu río, ahí aprendí a caminar. Siempre le digo a la gente que aprendí a caminar en la arena de tu playa. Pero la verdadera cosa es que a la playa fue lo secundario. Primero llegó el lodo. Primero tuve el lodo hasta las rodillas. Primero me encontré entre el agua completamente del color de mi piel y yo llena de cabeza, pies de caracoles. Y mi abuela se puso a sacármelos como si fueran piojos. Yo y en el mar y en la arena y en el lodo. Lo primero que recuerdo, Moss Landing, is your mud and the turban snails that Grandma had to pick out of my hair like lice. Because I decided to wallow in you all the way up to my knees, all the way up to my waist. And then there came the tiniest of sharks that decided to bite down on my fat toe. And I cried because we had to break its jaws in order to unpierce it from my skin. I bled into the mud at Moss Landing. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was amazing.
Gracias. Gracias. Qué linda.
Thank you. Gracias. Thank you. Oh my
I
God.
can really see that image. And in fact, we have somebody offering a mud sculpting to the kids tomorrow as a session. So if you're like really want to get your hands in the mud,
I'm there. I'm
you should
so
go for
there.
that one. After this rain, it's good to like just plunge your hands in.
Oh,
And,
it is. But yeah,
thank
no,
you
and
for-
especially right there in the slough, all that clay in the mud right there is wonderful. So anybody have any questions in the last 1 minute we have? Go. Any questions?
How come you're so good at poetry?
Ay, Dios mío, I think it's how old I am. It's that I'm like almost 100. No, I'm 50. I'm gonna be 50 soon. I've been breathing, writing, living poetry since I was a child, since I learned how to speak English. I realized that you could do things with words, and I really love it. And so there's no, there's nothing better than years of practice, I guess. And I really feel it in my heart. And that's the thing, it's just feel it in your heart. And yours are beautiful too. I loved it. That was wonderful también. But it's just something that becomes a part of you. And I don't know if I'm excellent at poetry, but I know that I love it. I know that I love it. And so you guys can follow my work. Oh, and for goodness sake, you can actually Google me. I have a lot of terrible videos on YouTube. Terrible, terrible. Of shots, of triple chins up my nose, mocos, ugly crying while I'm doing my poems. But you can always find me on social media. There's a lot of my videos and work and stuff. And please talk to me if you have questions. You want to talk about poetry, reach out to me. I'm always available to poets who want to discuss their craft, their work.
Gracias, Aideed. It's so beautiful. Thank you, Ishel, for your question.
Yeah.
Since I'm one of the hosts, I'm going to have to jump off, but you all can hang out a few minutes more before
Oh,
the
okay.
meeting actually closes.
Well, I know
But
they
I'm
might
going to
have
jump
to.
into another session. But thank you so much for being
Thank
here. Mwah.
Thank you,
It's
Maria.
beautiful. And thank you always for blessing us with your words.
Thank you, Maria. It's been wonderful being here with you. Gracias. Thank you. I hope I can do this again next year.
Of course. Claro que sí. Gracias.
Okay. So anybody else have any other questions? As Maria says, we have some time, but I know some of you might be jumping into other sessions as well. And that's okay. I understand. We kind of overlap on each other.
Yes, I'm sorry I couldn't be here from the beginning, but I immediately got the groove of it because I love that so much. I think we have a lot in common. I did, and maybe the others who are here who love words and who love language and playing with language because it's a beautiful expression of admiration of what is out there, what is inside, what is in other people. I don't know what the world would do without poets.
Right?
And there's not many people who appreciate the art. There
Eso
is.
sí. Eso sí, I often think that unfortunately our modern societies place a lot of value on what could be sold and bought, you know, and it's sad because there is a very it is an priceless value that poetry has for all poets. All of you here who are writing, you're poets already. Like I said, no one needs to name you or make you a poet. You are a poet if you write poetry. Comes from your heart, comes from you. You're a poet. And so continue to write always, and continue to be in awe of nature, of the universe, of each other. Because once we stop being amazed by each other and what we experience, pues yeah, we're kind of dead inside. Y entonces sí que,
Mm-hmm.
But I think poetry helps keep us like alive. And yeah, what can I tell you? I love poetry. I love it, love it. I love sharing it too. But whenever anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm gonna go ahead and type my email right here in the chat, okay? And you can reach out to me directly.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and there you go. You want to discuss poetry, or you want to find out about something, or you want to know about the UC Santa Cruz Arboretum, please go ahead and ask me. People should always visit those places. I mean, there are so many beautiful places to visit on the Central Coast, but the Arboretum is a special place. So gracias, thank you. I just want to thank everybody. Thank you for your beautiful poetry.